All good things come to an end. And unfortunately, due to a lot of events happening in my world around me, this will be the final episode of Podtastic Audio.
Sound matters. Be heard. Welcome to the podcast where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes tips to make your own show sound truly spectacular. This is Podtastic Audio.
Hey, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for being here. I truly do mean that. Thank you so much. You know, I love creating this podcast, and I've created this podcast to help you make your amazing podcast. That is the only reason I ever did this show to begin with, was just because on the other show, the Kris and Kristine Show, people were asking me questions like, how do you make your podcast? How do you make it sound so great? How are you doing all these cool, wonderful things? Do you have an amazing studio? Do you have guests that fly into your studio? That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're flying people into the studio. Are you actually doing that? That's basically been the premise of Podtastic Audio in the first place, was to address all those questions in a format about podcasting on a podcast itself about podcasting. And that is the only reason I've ever started this show. That is the only reason this show has ever existed, was just to help people create a podcast of their very own that sounded so amazing. And I'm talking right in the middle of the 2020 pandemic is when these questions were coming to me. And during the pandemic of 2020, a lot of people were locked down. A lot of people were not out and about, going to a regular place of work. They were working from home. A lot of people were. I wasn't, but a lot of people were. And that was probably the heyday of podcasting, the thick of it all for podcasting. Well, at least for us indie podcasters. I'm sure there are other indie style shows that started like way before, many years before 2020. But I would say during, the pandemic days of 2020, that's when you saw a lot of these Zoom shows pop up. These, Beers, Buds, and Batman in the Basement, and movie review shows, and watching Netflix shows, and talking to your buddies shows, and a lot of those kind of shows really started during the pandemic of 2020. And that's fine. That's fun. If you're having a blast doing it, great. A lot of the shows are dead now because, doing a podcast is actually hard work, especially if you want your show to be something worth listening to. And that's kind of the thing here, is that a lot of those shows, although they were fun to do for a lot of those guys that did them, a lot of the Beers, Basement, Batman, Star Wars type shows, I'm sure they were fun and all that great stuff. But for the listening audience, if the numbers weren't there, if your download numbers were very small, because, honestly, an indie podcaster is never going to get massive numbers. They just aren't. It's just not in the cards unless you pay for some kind of marketing strategy, or maybe if you're buying downloads, that's a thing too. I wouldn't suggest doing that. But if you want to have massive reach and massive numbers, you have to be out there. You need to put money in ads and advertising. You need to spend dollars on actually trying to grow the show. And I see a lot of people do that. And that's the thing that kind of brings me to here today, is that this show right here, Podtastic Audio, was only designed to help people out. It was the companion show to the Kris and Kristine Show. When I did the Kris and Kristine Show during the thick of it all in 2020, we were having a blast, having a great time doing the show. And, people are asking me questions like, how do you do that? How are you making your show sound so great? How are you doing all those wonderful things? And during the year 2020, when I was still trying to figure out podcasting, I'm still trying to learn how to do stuff, like physically make a microphone work, physically get the audio interface to work, record stuff. I wasn't even thinking about doing video. We dabbled a couple things in video, but video is not my main purpose of podcasting. It was audio only. And I know that there were places like Anchor that popped up and all those kind of things. And I figured that I want to help people. I want to talk about podcasting. I love podcasting. I love creating the podcast. Let me show you what I've done on that show. Let me put it in practice here on this show to help you make your show. And now that we're in the middle of 2025, a lot of those podcasts back then, the Buds, Beers, Basement, Batman, Star Wars shows, a lot of those shows are gone. Maybe some are still around, but a lot of those shows, the pandemic shows, all fizzled and are pod faded by now. I mean, the Kris Kristine Show is dead. Of course, we're getting divorced. That has a big part of it. The reason why I don't do the show anymore. Which brings me to today on this show right here. Now, this show and this episode right here of this show is probably one of the hardest episodes I'm ever going to record. And that is because my love of podcasting, my love and my passion for creating podcasts and helping podcasters is that this show right here, Podtastic Audio, today is going to be my final episode of Podtastic Audio as for things go right now. Now, things change, and that's the thing I want to talk about is that when I was doing the Kris Kristine Show, in the thick of it all, happy-go-lucky, just recording guests and having Kristine come on and all that, and things do change. Life gets in the way. People have other things going on, and they have different things they want to focus on. So a podcast may not be the main priority, and I get that, and life gets in the way. So you have to pivot, you have to change, you have to put other things first, and then the podcast sits in the back corner, and I totally get that. I totally understand. But nothing lasts forever. Nothing does. All good things come to an end eventually. And with Podtastic Audio here, being that I'm going through a lot of challenges in my personal life, a divorce, selling the house, having to move, having to find a place to move, not even knowing if I box all this gear up into storage, am I going to have access to it? And once I get my new place, am I going to have a space in the new place to set up a podcast studio? I hope so. I mean, that's kind of my goal, but I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know where the next chapter of my life is going to take me. I have no idea. And I was planning on taking a pause on Podtastic Audio anyways. Like I said, I don't know what the future has in store. I don't know where I'll be or what I'll be doing. I don't know. I love creating content. I can tell you that much. I love playing around on social media. I like having fun. I like posting fun things. I like creating fun videos. I like talking to the microphone. I like doing the podcast stuff. I like creating podcasts. I like editing stuff. I like doing all those wonderful things. But at some point, I have to take a break, reset, and come back better than ever. And right now is the perfect time for me to take that break. Right now, I'm not bound by any contracts. I am not bound by any other companies that say I have to podcast or get so many episodes out, or I'm not working for a podcasting company. That's the thing that always kind of set me apart from all of the other podcasts about podcasting, because most of them, I would say maybe like 90% of them, are either attached to a podcasting branding company, a podcast hosting company, or they've been in the podcasting universe for so long, their entire career, they have never done anything else other than podcasting related stuff. That being said, I come into this as a complete outsider. I've come into the space as if I'm the rookie joining the major league team, and they're looking at me like I'm this amateur rookie, and I don't feel like I can compete and compare to those who've been doing it for 20 years. And at the same time, I've never done this full time. I don't get paid to podcast. I don't work for a company. I work in a completely different industry. And I just come into podcasting because I love creating content. I love listening to shows. And I figured, well, why not I make a show? And then people were asking me how I made that. And that's how I got involved here with Podtastic Audio. And last night I was late on the phone with a listener talking about my show and bringing it to an end. And he was telling me that my authenticity and my realism and my relatability is what makes my show stand out above all the other shows out there, especially the ones about podcasting, because I'm not trying to sell you anything. And I'm not trying to have you join our company or use our services or all that nonsense, which is fine. Listen, I get it. People have to make money. They work for a company. The company has to push a product and get sales so they can stay in business, so they have a job and they can keep doing their thing and doing all their wonderful stuff. But I remember this when I went to the podcast movement in Los Angeles, which I had to pay for it out of my own pocket, by the way. But everybody else that was there, people were speaking or people were there attending the event or working the different booths. They either were working for a podcasting related company, they were there working the event and they were speaking and they got the free hotel and the free tickets and free stuff. But if you weren't involved in the industry, would you even be there at the event? If you had to pay a few $1,000s of your own money to get there and do that, would you still do that? And that's kind of the thing, is that most of those people wouldn't do that because it's a lot of money. And I get it. Podcasting can be done for free. It can be done for very cheap. I've proven that. But when it gets involved with marketing teams and bigger companies and conventions and all that stuff, it's very, very expensive. You need a return on your investment. And as an indie podcaster, if you're getting merely 20 to 50 downloads an episode, maybe making $1 or $2 per episode in whatever, that doesn't make enough money to warrant spending thousands of dollars to go to a podcasting event. I just don't see it. And I know that hobbies are expensive. I mean, I love to travel. I haven't traveled around the world, but I've traveled around the United States. And yes, that's very expensive. And some would say that's essentially a hobby. Gambling at a casino, going to Vegas, gambling is essentially a hobby. I know some people try to make it a business. Some people try to make it a job. I get it. But essentially, that's still a hobby. And hobbies can be fun, but hobbies can also be very expensive. So I can really see why a lot of shows do pod fade after 7 to 10 episodes, because if they're not seeing a big return on their investment or if they got other things happening. And the thing for me, for this show right here, Podtastic Audio, is that I want to be here. I want to do this, but life is really throwing a curveball at me right now. And I need to do what I have to do to take care of things first before I come back to doing any kind of like content creation. And when I finally do come back to doing content creation, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if it's going to be a show about podcasting or it's going to be something completely different. I dabbled with something a little bit differently with Everyone's a Bot, and that show fizzled out really quick because I got really also kind of over it really quick. I did a bunch of batch episodes all together. So I released a bunch, I say a bunch, 5 or whatever it was. And then I was like, I'm kind of already over it. So there's something there about podcasting that I love creating content. I love podcasting where I think for me, I need to find the right place and space to do something that really ignites my passion for podcasting all over again. And it's really hard to figure that out when the main show, the Kris Kristine Show, was something I did because I dated Kristine. It was like our date night, our Saturday night date night thing we did was making a podcast. And we eventually got married and all that stuff. And it kind of bloomed from there, I guess. But then this show started, and that whole ecosystem of being with her and doing the show together, having so much fun doing it. And then it kind of sprinkling into this show as the reason I did this show, how much fun I had doing the other show. But now that we're not even together, we're, getting divorced and separated and things are not doing well between us. So, I mean, where's the fun? Where's the excitement for me? It's not really there anymore like it once was. And also on another note, that with so many different AI tools that are out there right now, AI voices, AI stuff, AI everything, that doing a show about podcasting as a monologue, like I've been doing on this show for the most part, it can easily be replicated. And I know that there's so many shows about podcasting, and a lot of them are sharing the same tips, just in a different format and in a different way, same things over and over again. And it got me thinking that with so much AI stuff out there and so much AI research and script writing and all that stuff, and AI voices doing the script writing and AI voices covering the thing on the podcast, that I think if you're going to listen to a show about podcasting, it cannot be the top 10 microphones or the top 10 blah, 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 or whatever. I think that it's got to be more personal, more relatable, and more engaging on a more human level than the chatbots can actually do. Because like in literally 5 minutes, I can probably come up with a script about a podcast, run it into something like that Google Notebook LM or even 11 Labs or whatever, and have it like read it out. And I can put an entire podcast together end to end, totally AI, in a matter of minutes. And I don't have to be here. So what's the fun in that? If you're just regurgitating the same old facts and data that everybody else has said, maybe with a different voice, maybe a different intro song, whoop-de-doo. And I know there's so much AI noise out there. AI garbage, AI crap, AI slop, whatever you want to call it. There's so much stuff all over social media. I'm sure the podcasting landscape's probably filled with it too. YouTube, you name it, especially all the video stuff out there, all the crazy stuff. That's just fun. It's fine. It's whatever. It's just data being regurgitated by AI voices with that never stutter, that never, say that never even, screw up or anything like that. And I know that I've played with AI in this show before, and I've introduced you to a lot of cool AI technology, AI stuff. And even with editing audio, there's a lot of AI editors out there that will take out all the ums, even enhance the audio. I mean, what is it like? Descript Studio Sound can do all that stuff. I use Resound for stuff, and there's also Podcast Adobe Enhance. I'll do crazy stuff. And I'm sure there's plenty of other sources and resources out there that will help you create a podcast or even a video instantaneously, super easy, quick, easy, flawless. And if you want to pay somebody, you can pay somebody too. Whatever, do your thing. Do it however you want. But I think, now this all depends. That's the thing. Everything depends on things happening and things going a certain way that I cannot predict the future. I do not know where I'll be living. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how big my space is going to be. I don't know how big my budget's going to be. I don't know how much time I'll have available to do anything extra other than just work and take care of the kids. I do not know what the future has in store. But that being said, that I think that my next project I want to do, now it's all what I want to do, not what I could do, it's what I want to do, is that I want to really dabble with YouTube proper. Now, when I say YouTube proper, what I mean by that is this. I mean a YouTube channel where I'm physically shooting video that's out and about. Not here in this room in a single cam shot talking to a screen on a microphone. What I mean is like physically out in the real world shooting video, whether it's a travel video or, like a DIY video on stuff. I haven't decided what it's going to be, but I think that is the direction I'd rather go into because that keeps me active. It keeps me outside. It keeps me doing stuff, keeps me wanting to, do things like traveling and doing things like that. I've always thought of doing like travel vlog type videos, and I've dabbled with them a little bit when we went on vacations and things like that, but they weren't really vlog type. They were kind of more like a bunch of B-roll I shot. I threw it all together in an editor and added some music behind it and kind of slapped it all together and made like a video out of it all. Kind of like that, but I want to take it a little more seriously. Maybe have more of me talking and me vlogging and things like that in the videos and things of that sort. That's kind of what I'm thinking about doing. And then maybe doing a podcast companion to that style. But like I said, I still do not know what it's going to be about or how I'm going to do it or any of that stuff. That's kind of the thought process I have of the next thing I would like to do, because I've done almost everything in podcasting here. I've done some videos type stuff, and I've done, of course, audio type stuff, but I know how to record audio. I know how to edit audio. I know how to shoot video. I've got a couple cameras. They're older cameras, but they still work. They'll still get the job done. And even those cameras may not have the best microphones on them. I know how to edit audio, and I can run them through enhanced features like Adobe Enhance and things like that. So I can get good audio even out of like, an older camera. So right now I do have all the tools I need to create a YouTube channel with video and do it and shoot it anywhere I want. I can do that as of today, right now. But I do not know what I'm going to film or what the show is going to be about. That's kind of the big point of when you create anything that's either a YouTube channel or a podcast. You really need to figure out like all of the why are you doing this? What is this going to be about? Who is your target audience? Why should they care? And why should they show up to watch you do the thing? And I have to figure all those things out first, which I never really thought about that when I did the Kris Kristine Show. In fact, when I did the Kris Kristine Show, I was more excited about how to physically record audio and how to actually get it together and get it done. Like, how do I make this thing record an MP3, and how do I get this MP3 into Apple, and how can I listen to it in my car and things like that? Like, all those little details were super exciting for me, regardless of what we were talking about. I just figured we'll figure that out as we went along. I just want to make sure we can actually get this thing physically done. Will this podcast actually fly? Which, now looking back and all that I know now, it's probably the worst way to start a podcast. You should really know what your show is going to be about first, know who your target audience is first, know what you're going to talk about first. These kind of minor details are probably very important. And the same thing goes with a proper YouTube channel. But hey, that is my idea of things that I would like to do in the future. Not saying it's going to happen. Not saying anything's going to happen. Not saying, I don't know, because I'm kind of coasting down this hill and I don't know what's at the other end. I don't know what's going to happen. And I love helping you create your show. And I've only done this show for you so you can make an amazing show of your very own. And I want to say thank you once again for being here and being a part of my life and helping me create something that you enjoy doing. And I cannot believe that this show, Podtastic Audio, has been as popular as it's been. It was never designed to be a super popular show. It was designed to be an afterthought show, like a little side thing that I just did, threw together in 10 minutes and out the door, whatever it was. It was something super simple, super afterthought. So because this is it, and I want to say thank you once again, is that I'm going to play you the very first episode of Podtastic Audio. I'm going to play it right now so you get a taste of what it was like at the very, very beginning. And I'm going to tell you, a little warning here, is that I was very nervous because episode 1 of this show was my very first time recording a solo episode ever. I never did solo content ever. It was always with Kristine in the same room, doing our thing together. And this is the first time I actually did something completely on my own, all by myself, episode 1. So thank you once again. Please enjoy episode 1 of Podtastic Audio.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Hey, how you doing out there today? And thank you for listening to this podcast today, the official launch of Podtastic Audio. I am Kris of the Kris and Kristine Show podcast. You can find that at www.krisandkristineshow.com. That is Kris and Kristine, both with the letter K for the name. And if you have heard us on that podcast, you realize, you know what? That show sounds pretty good. You guys actually know what you're doing when it comes to putting audio together. I mean, you guys must have this big, fancy studio, and you guys must have all this elaborate equipment and mixers. And you guys, people assume that, but the truth is, we really don't. We have super basic stuff. And I'm trying to tell you guys is that you do not need thousands of dollars of equipment to make a podcast, or at least any kind of podcast that at least sounds somewhat decent sounding. That comes later, but you can invest thousands of dollars of equipment. Now, I always tell people this is almost like golf. I don't really play golf that much, but if you do go play golf, there are 2 major extremes that you can buy for golf clubs. If you ever go to a store like a sporting goods store or anything like that, you can buy a set of golf clubs for merely $60, $70, less than $100. You can get a decent set of golf clubs and play golf. Or you can go on the other extreme and you can spend $10,000 for a set of golf clubs. At the end of the day, they both hit balls on the golf course. You can still play the game. And you can probably play a pretty good game with a basic set of golf clubs. And that's what I'm trying to tell you guys here on this episode, on this podcast, is that you can make decent audio with basic equipment. You do not need thousands of dollars of stuff. And that's what I'm going to show you guys here. And if you think I'm fooling you guys, listen to our other podcast, or even this one, really, you're listening to right now. But on our other podcast, the Kris and Kristine Show, we were able to produce a show with literally nothing starting out. And we've advanced over the years a little bit with, I say years, we've only been doing it since 2019. So we've got a year and a year and a half doing it so far. And what I've learned doing it is that audio really does matter, and how you record it, and also how you send it out to the world. Because you think about it, everybody's listening to this thing, whether it's on their phone, whether it's in their car, whether it's on their computer. I mean, not everybody has the same type of equipment, and not everybody's listening to it in the same environment. So keep that in mind. But this podcast I'm doing for you guys right now is to show you guys some of the tips and tricks on how to create a good sounding podcast that at least it will sound decent enough to where you will almost fool anybody that's listening. That's kind of why I like the audio version of podcasting. I'm not really a fan of the video podcasting, because I think that's more of like a YouTube thing. And if you have a podcast and it's like a video Zoom recording that you record and that you put it on, like, say, YouTube, and you say, here's my podcast, check it out. No, that's not a podcast. You are a YouTuber. That's what you are, not a podcaster. So podcasting for this show and for what I'm talking about is going to be audio only, just like radio, just like music. Audio. It's the audio is where people, for some weird reason, they always have a hard time figuring out audio. It's weird. If you buy a new iPhone, and every single year they upgrade the iPhone camera, they make a big deal about the cameras in the iPhone. It's like it's got the new lens, it's got the new pixels, and blah, 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 blah. But then when it comes to microphones on the phone, they may upgrade them, but it's not a selling point. People seem to know how to shoot video very easily. I don't think you can screw that up. You just point the camera and you just hit record. For some reason with audio, I don't know what it is, but people cannot figure out how to do good audio. And I know it sounds hard because you think, well, I just put this microphone in the general area of the thing that's talking, or person, I guess, and it's going to pick up the audio. That's not always the case. Especially, it's really not the case to get good audio, because with video, you just point at the object. You can point a microphone at the object, but you got to get it close enough to hear it. And you have to make sure that you're not getting too much, you're not too loud, because it'll kind of get in the red and that gets distorted. That sort of stuff happens. So if you have a podcast, or if you're thinking about making a podcast, I can show you how to do it for basically nothing. And when I mean nothing, I'm talking a very, very small minimum cost. I mean, I'm trying to keep these costs down to a very, very small budget. For the Kris and Kristine Show, at first, we started off with literally, I think I put maybe $20 microphones we had, and basic headphones. Well, their headphones were decent, but they weren't like basic ones. We'll get into headphones later. But we got real basic microphones. We figured out a way to plug them into the computer, to trick the computer to play both at the same time, record both at the same time. So once we figured that out, the hard part for us was figuring out the audio levels, because we had two of us going on at the same time, and we want the audio to sound decent, and we wanted to first, get it recorded, because, the first thing you want to do with a podcast is you got to have an idea. You got to have something to talk about. Otherwise, you're just like talking to your friend about what you did last week. That'd be fun to you guys, but for everybody listening, they're like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Like, I wasn't there. I wasn't at Joe's house. I don't even know Joe. Why are you telling me this? So make sure you know what you're going to talk about. That's obvious. And when you talk into the microphone, make sure you get the audio at a decent level. Now, like I said, you can have a basic microphone and a basic pair of headphones and a computer. I forgot to mention that. The three main things you really need to do a podcast, I would say, is a microphone. I would start off with a USB, basic, probably with a headphone monitoring jack on the microphone, decent pair of headphones that are over the ear. Make sure they are not noise canceling. And if they are noise canceling, make sure the noise canceling feature is off. You're like, why? I got these special Bose headphones and they're great. They got noise canceling and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're recording audio with a microphone and you want to hear any kind of like sounds in the background that you may want to edit out, well, how can you not hear them if you don't know they're even there? Because the headphones are muting those sounds. So you wouldn't even know they're even there. So make sure you do not have noise canceling headphones. I don't know why someone said noise canceling headphones for podcasting, but how are you supposed to hear stuff that you're trying to edit out if you can't hear it? Okay, I'm sorry, I get all hypered up here. And then you need a computer, obviously, right? You need a computer to hook everything up to and record on. Any kind of computer with that can take a microphone, that's got a decent processor, that's got internet. The only reason why you need the internet is to just upload it to your web hosting platform. More on that later. But you need an internet connection, especially if you're going to do Skype calls or any kind of like Zoom calls or any kind of stuff. Do not use the microphone on the computer. Do not use the laptop microphone that's built in. I'm sure it sounds great on your Zoom to you. And if you ever heard a Zoom call with a microphone that's on the laptop, it has that echoey sound, like the guy sounds like he's like in the next room, or yeah, I guess echoey is the best word I can use for that. That's what happens. It sounds like crap. I'm telling you, crap. Don't do that. Now, over the course of this podcast, I am going to break down the core elements of what you need to do to get started for a very, very cheap price. I will break down cheap microphones I think that should be bought if you're starting out. Now, it's just assuming this is just going to be you doing it by yourself. If you're going to have a co-host in the same environment, like same room, you're going to need a USB interface. But that comes later. What I'm talking about right now is maybe just for the solo person that wants to do a podcast in their room, in next to their computer, just them, nobody else. You can do it, and I'm going to show you how to do it for very, very cheap, and it should sound spectacular. So you're probably thinking, well, what is a podcast? Well, you're listening to a podcast right now. Hate to break it to you. So this is a podcast. Now, the very, very first podcast came out in the year 2004 by our friends Adam Curry and Dave Weiner. They are credited for inventing the podcast. Now, the podcast, what it is, it's like a radio show, talk show, audio format that is on your phone or computer that you can access anytime you want. Almost like I always tell people, it's kind of like YouTube for like audio talk shows, but like a YouTube or Netflix. I guess you can use that one too. I've heard that too. It is actually a podcast by definition, comes through what is called a RSS feed. And you're thinking, well, what the hell is an RSS feed? Well, an RSS feed stands for really simple syndication, or it's a web feed, so to speak. Now, to break this down, I know it sounds complicated, and trust me, it probably is. I don't even know half this junk, but I do know what it does. What it does is it basically, you take your podcast that you've recorded on your computer. It's all packaged and all ready to go. And then you take that, and then you load it onto what is called a hosting site. It's like, say, a storage unit for your audio podcast. You're renting space at these hosting companies, and they will store your podcast for a cost. Some are free. And what they do is, once set up, they convert your audio in something called a RSS feed. And the RSS feed is what gets beamed out to, they say, like the Apple Podcasts or the Google Podcasts or Spotify or whatever those apps you use to listen to podcasting. It actually sends the feed from your audio, from your host, to the apps. And that's how they play it. Do you think Apple Podcast actually stores all those podcasts on the Apple app? No, it doesn't. It actually just borrows the feed from the host. Whoever the host is, there's like a bunch of them you can buy. I don't know. There's a ton of them. So once you have your RSS feed, you can upload them to and apply for the Apple Podcast, the Spotify, the Google, the iHeartRadio. We're on all those ones. And once you get your first podcast launched, and once you get like a few downloads or listens, and people start liking it and start listening to it on the regular, you'll see that your numbers will continue to rise. And you'll see people listening from all over the country and all over the world. And you're like, who are these guys? They're listening to our show in Argentina or Egypt, or Spain, or even New York or California. And you're like, wow, that's great. People are hearing me all over the world. And it's kind of surreal to think about. But it's kind of fun at the same time, too, because you're creating content and you're putting something in somebody else's ears. It's like having a conversation with somebody else. A podcast can be anything you want it to be. People say it's got to be this or it's got to be that. Your podcast is yours. You do it how you want to do it. The way I look at it, there's basically kind of like two styles of podcasting, I would really say. There's like the business, buttoned up, very serious podcasting of podcasts. And then there's more of the kickback, relaxed, we're going to talk about our fun things we like to do or fun things we like to talk about. It could be hobbies or, vacations you went on or your favorite TV shows. There's really no rule to how you do a podcast. Really no rule at all. The only rule I would say is that make sure the audio is good enough to where people can hear it, But you can design your show any way you want. If you're doing a solo show, eventually, you're probably going to want to have a guest on. Now, that's another episode we're going to talk about how to do that correctly and what software that we use on the Kris and Kristine Show to make it sound spectacular and how we take care of that. But there's plenty of ways you can do that, just like there's plenty of microphones, just like there's plenty of hosting sites, just like there's plenty of audio recording software to record the episode on. And I guess I can probably start with that. The audio recording software that we use is free. Yes. Almost everything I'm going to tell you about today or in this podcast is going to be free stuff. We use Audacity. Audacity is a free online, you just download it online. It's a free audio digital workstation for audio for your computer. It works on Mac and PC. It's very, very easy to use. I've been using it for a year and a half now, and this is the very first audio software I've ever used. Although I do hear that if you do try to go to Pro Tools or any of the other ones, it's very confusing, and trust me, it is. I downloaded Pro Tools on this computer about a month ago to try it out, and I was so confused. I didn't understand why there was different boxes, why one was up here, one was down there. Why can't I zoom in the way I do it on Audacity? Why can't I edit the way I do it on Audacity? I think Audacity is perfect. It does everything you need to do, and it has a lot of crazy extra features as far as sound goes. Like you can really fine-tune the sound of everything. The audio, the vocals, the EQ. I mean, you can really get down to the nit and gritty of the actual sound in Audacity. And I think it's great. It's very easy to use. And guess what, kids? It's free. Yes, it's totally free. Get it. I recommend Audacity if you're going to start out doing any kind of podcast stuff. Okay, so let's recap what we actually need to do a podcast. Well, you need a microphone. And I would recommend one that has a USB with a audio headphone jack to do zero latency monitoring. We think, what is latency? Well, latency is the delay it takes for the audio to be set into the microphone and then pop back to your ears or to the computer or whatever. It's latency. With zero latency monitoring with the headphone jack that most of the microphones have, you can plug your headphones directly into the microphone. And as you speak, you will hear it in your ears. It may sound crazy at first. It may sound trippy at first, but it is key to where if you are listening to yourself talk, as you talk, you will hear exactly what is being recorded. Like exactly. And you also will hear if there's any kind of sounds like a humming or a buzzing or a chirping or anything else. You're basically going to hear what the microphone hears. So, that way you'll know that there's a problem and you can take care of it right then and there instead of recording everything and then uploading it, and then maybe you listen back to it and you realize, was that buzzing in the microphone the whole time? Or what was that weird sound I keep hearing, that clicking sound? Well, if you were listening while you were recording, you could probably have taken that out or stopped it and fixed it at that point. So I would recommend a microphone, USB, that's got a headphone jack that you can listen to with zero latency at the same time. In another episode, I'll probably break down Amazon's best top 10 microphones that have that feature. Next, you definitely need a computer, right? Because how can you hook a microphone up to a USB on a computer? Now, you probably could do it on an iPad. I've seen some people do that. I wouldn't do that. I would just stick with a regular computer or laptop, Mac, PC, whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as you can plug a USB microphone into it so you can record. And then, obviously, with the computer comes the software to record. And like I said, Audacity. Use Audacity. You can record directly into this. And in fact, right now, I am recording directly into Audacity as we speak. So this is all being done in Audacity. There you go. And then you're obviously going to need decent studio headphones. The ones that I have, I've been using these this entire time since I started a podcast. They are, I don't know the name of them, but they are, I will put them in the show notes or something, but they were like $32 on Amazon. If you look up studio headphones, they're the ones that come up. They're like $35, $32, something like that. And I've been using them the entire time. They're great. And since I've been doing this podcast, I love them. They're fantastic. They feel very comfortable. They're very light. They fold together nice and compact, so you can put them away in a little box and there's no problem. They're great. I love them. You need headphones. So you got the computer, get the headphones, get the microphone, and then you need to save it, obviously. You need to, upload it to a host of your choice. I'm not going to tell you right now, but you pick what podcast platform, what podcast host you want to use, and then you go with them, upload your stuff, and then from there, we'll work on getting it out to the Apple Podcast and the Spotify and all that fun stuff. But for right now, that's kind of the basics on how to really get started. And I know the audio part is going to be really, really hard to do. And because what you're going to do is you're going to hear it and you're going to play it back and you're going to say, why doesn't it sound like such and such podcast? Why doesn't sound like theirs sounds more bright and alive? And I think that's what I did with the Kris and Kristine Show, is I took the show and I said, our goal for the way the audio is supposed to sound, we want to make sure it sounds as good as radio. Like for us, regular FM radio talk shows and regular radio shows was like my benchmark. If I can make our podcast sound as good as theirs, then that's it. And that's the ultimate goal, really, to make it sound like it's something on the radio. So that's what we did. Okay, and as I look at the clock now, we are at about the 20-minute mark, and I think that I wanted to keep these episodes short and neat and tight. They're around 20 minutes. So over the next episodes or so, I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this for. I don't know how many episodes I'm going to do. I don't even know. All I know is that I'm doing this for you guys because I love the audio, but I hate the bad audio, and I want to make sure you guys know what you're doing. So that should get you started if you're starting out doing a podcast. If you already have a podcast, keep listening to more episodes from Podtastic Audio here, and I will show you some tips and tricks to what I do to get my audio to sound spectacular. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.
I got a mic and a story to tell in a world of noise. I'll ring the bell, Podtastic Audio, breaking through. A voice for the many, a guide for the new. Turn it up, let the world hear your words cut through loud and clear. Podtastic Audio. Every story wrapped in care and love. You don't need fame, just be true. Your voice is gold and they'll find you. Turn it up, let the world hear your words cut through loud and clear. Podtastic audio, it's your stage. Share your heart, break the cage. From the bedroom to the stars above, every story wrapped in care and love. You don't need fame, just be true. Your voice is gold and they'll find you. Authentic words, they light the fire. Build the dream, go higher and higher. Helping hands, lifting others tall. Podtastic audio, there's room for all. Turn it up, your words cut through loud and clear. Podtastic audio, it's your stage. Share your heart, break the cage. Break the cage. Authentic words, they light the fire.